Former President Trump taking to Truth Social this morning to explain how he would protect freedom of speech if he were to be inaugurated as president again.
National correspondent Mike Carter has the latest. Hi, Mike.
Hey guys, good afternoon. Yeah, we've known about this major announcement from the former president Donald Trump for about a day now. Since lunchtime on Wednesday, a lot of folks across the country wondering, speculating what this could mean. A major announcement from the former president. Take a look.
America needs a superhero.
Well, the former president initially teased out that he'd be releasing a line of digital trading cards. I don't think anyone saw that coming, but a short time later, the former president, Donald Trump, did make a policy proposal, a free speech policy proposal about what he would do to preserve freedom of speech online should he be reelected president in 2024.
Here's my plan. First, within hours of my inauguration, I will sign an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will then ban federal money from being used to label domestic speech as mis- or disinformation.
Donald Trump went on to say upon his inauguration, he would begin the process of firing every federal bureaucrat that is engaged in domestic censorship directly or indirectly, whether they be in the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health and Human Services, the FBI, or the DOJ. Trump saying he will also order the DOJ to investigate all parties involved in the online censorship regime, which he calls destructive and terrible, and to aggressively prosecute any and all crimes identified, including violations of federal civil rights law, campaign finance laws, federal election law, security laws, and antitrust laws, the Hatch Act, and a host of other potential criminal, civil, and regulatory and constitutional offenses. Of course, many folks across the country wondering what this big announcement would be. Some folks hoping maybe for a potential VP pick, or Donald Trump potentially announcing that he's running for Speaker of the House, or that he's rejoining Twitter. Of course, this news about Trump's policy proposal to protect free speech online coming just the same week, less than a week actually, after the latest batch of Twitter files released by journalist Barry Weiss announcing what the inner workings of the former regime of Twitter were, and their really, as they were trying to ban the former president from the platform. This appears to be Donald Trump striking back at just that. Guys?
Mike Carter, thanks so much.
No crooked establishment.
None of that twisting the
truth.
No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think.
They let
me decide.
Newsmax.
Real news
for real people.